Welcome to Community with Closers. I'm your host, Pat Clark, and this is where closers are born. Get ready for high-energy stories, game-changing strategies, and the relentless pursuit of success. In each episode, we dissect the art of sealing the deal, celebrate triumphs, and explore the grit that defines salesmanship. This is the ultimate podcast for sales warriors ready to conquer the business battlefield. All right, what's going on, guys? Pat Clark here with Community with Closers, and we have a special guest for you. It's going to be jam-packed, and it's a special tonight because we're going to be talking about setting yourself up as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, for the long run. And we got my good friend, David McArthur, on the call. David, what is up, brother?
Hey, man. Great Wednesday. Getting ready for the 4th. Wrapping things up for the day. Been here for 12 hours, so I'm trying to end it up on a high note before I take some time off.
I love it, man. I love it. That's you, though, man. Put in the work, dude. I don't think I've met anybody that works harder than you. I want to talk about that a little bit because you've won some awards. You're top of the country.
Yeah. I recently, I'm with Northwestern Mutual. Recently was named, top in the regions. I've had some regional things. I got a couple plaques. You can see them there. Where they go? There they are. And doing some really good things here in the upstate. So I'm kind of trailblazing a little bit here in Greenville in the upstate. So it's pretty cool.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's how I met you. Was like we were in a networking event. I think you didn't get to make it, but we were on the list, and dude, you were a friggin' hunter. You were like reaching out. You're like, Pat, let's grab some lunch, man. Let's figure this out. And sure enough, so a little backstory for everybody tuning in tonight is David McArthur is our financial advisor. Sat us down, went through everything, smooth process, and it all made sense and broke it down for us because that's what it's all about, is investing in your future later on. So let's talk a little bit, about that process, because I know a lot of people, entrepreneurs, right? They're start making some money, and it's like, what do you do with it? And I know for me, man, like growing up, we didn't talk about money, and it was one of those things, we never had money. I mean, to even talk about it, but what do you do when you for your future? And so I want to kind of reverse engineer that, and you take it away, man.
Yeah. So obviously I can't give specifics just because of, compliance and all the regulatory stuff that's around. But in general, like the biggest thing is living and designing things for their role. So what I've learned through all this, and I think it was communicated to you a lot, when you give dollars a job, when you give people a job, like they're expected to do that job, right? So it's not always chasing ROI with every dollar. It's not always going after the newest beautiful thing that's out there. It's having a plan, putting things in the place that you need it to do that job.
Yeah.
Right. So if its job is to be your nest egg, let it be your nest egg, and let's figure out which account, which section you're in that does the best job for your nest egg. Right. It's just like an employee, right? You're not going to hire somebody at the front desk that's going to be a great washer, right? Like they're not going to work. It's just not going to go together. So when we design plans for our clients, when we talk to our clients, we really break it down to like, what's the purpose? What's the end game for these dollars?
Yeah.
And then we can go by design rather than by default, because what we find with a lot of our clients, and I think this is true with you, is you just build things. You don't really know why you build them. You just have them, right?
Just love building some stuff.
Right. You built it and you're like, yeah, I got this thing. Like, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
So when we start getting a growth mindset, abundant mindset, we get to start looking at the big picture, and then we get to start allocating all of those things to their jobs, and it makes the world a difference. I think you would agree in our conversations, right? That's just that's how things need to go. That's what I
Yes.
like about it.
No, it's awesome to have those conversations, those check-ins. It's not something that you can just kind of like set it and forget it. You need to be watching it. And you guys check in with us and you're like, hey, your money grew by this much, right? Last year. And I'm like, okay, yes, let's go. Right. And it's like you said, it's not for everyone. You gotta really book the call. You gotta look at what you got going on. But it's like, when do you start? Right. And it's like, start now. Start planning for the future now.
We should have started before. It's always should have started like way before. When should I have started my business? Before.
Yeah.
When should I have started planning? Before. Because like that's when you should do it. It's the same thing with finance, right? There's no time like the present to sit down, have a good conversation, and figure out if you're surrounding yourself with people that get what you're trying to do. And that way they have tools that support what you're trying to create.
Agreed. And I think that's the big thing is, when you start off, you don't know what those tools are. So you really got to dive into it. Like you got to, I always say, get a coach, right? When we're talking about business, and you got to work on yourself. You got to change yourself. So, the lingo, the financial lingo. So, when we talk, it's like some of that stuff, I'm like, Dave, bring it down to my level, right?
Explain that one for me.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like, you don't have to know everything, right? I mean, it's like, that's why we pay financial advisors, is like, hey, what are we looking at? And then I might go research that, right? And those kinds of things.
Yeah. And it's a lot of that give and take. I've started telling my clients like ahead of time, right? That a no to a product is not a no to the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When we start looking at the big picture, I'm going to bring what makes math sense, right? We're gonna try to get things that do the job. But if those things don't feel right to you, we can just go get something else. It's not emotional for me. It's like, this is math. This is what's going on. This is how it works, and we get to break it down based on what we're trying to create, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, and it's been cool to see that and like create a plan for us. I mean, with your teammates too, they come into the picture and it's like, hey, I got this question, or, I got this, you know, sum of money, whatever it may be. And it's like, okay, let's call somebody else in too, like Tony, right? And then we'll get on the phone with him and he'll be like, yeah, I'm more toward for this, right? And it's working with that team to really, engage with you and know what's going on with different situations. So I think that helps out a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Having different perspectives. Most of the time with my clients, it's not just me, right? It's a second set of eyes. It's a second set of thought, because they could hear it a little bit differently than I do. Everybody takes their little spin on it. So when we're dealing with business owners specifically, it's hardly ever that we're in a meeting like by ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Just because it gets pretty complex.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because I want to rewind just a little bit. So, let's talk about your background, because, I really think that your background plays a big, part in that. So let's kick it off with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wouldn't be here without where I've been, right? So I grew up in the upstate of South Carolina, went to Virginia for college, went to a small college up there, over at Roanoke. They're having their first football team ever goes this year. We're trying to get tickets. They haven't gone on sale yet, so I'm excited to go to their first football game. Anyway, side story. And then and then I came back here after working in a call center at a place that built foot orthotics, and I started going down that rabbit hole. So I got 4 medical certifications. in orthotic and prosthetics, a prosthetic assistant, a orthotic assistant. I got all these little credentials to start doing things, and I worked a clinic here in the upstate of South Carolina. We were seeing somewhere between 30 and 50 patients a day. It was great. I really enjoyed it, but ended up having some regulations come down saying, hey, I needed to go back to school if I wanted to continue what I was doing. And it just didn't make a lot of math sense because I had just had a baby, right? Like my son was like brand spanking new. And there was no way I was going to give up my income and go back to school, right?
Yeah.
So I got into sales. I started selling the products that I was creating for clients. I started selling them to people like myself.
Okay.
And it really taught me kind of the art of sales, the kind of grinding mentality, because I don't know if you know, but medical sales is cutthroat, right? It's a lot. So did a lot of that for about 3 years. Had some tragedy happen in the family. It ended up with me focusing a little bit on some financial planning, not just for me, but for the family. And at the end of it, my financial advisor, who's now my partner, came to me and he was like, "You're good at this. Like, you got to give it a shot." So
that's cool.
2020, yeah. So 2020 happened. Medical sales start going down the hill. I was like, well, no time like the present. Let's go. And I jumped in head first right in the middle of COVID and starting a business. So it was crazy. It was crazy.
Nice. That's an epic story. I mean, you go into that, you're like, dude, the world just flipped upside down, but we're going to make it happen. And dude, you did.
Make it go. Yeah. And that's when I really started grinding. That's when I met you. I met you that fall, I think, fall of 2020 at some point.
Yep.
And we kind of hit it off, and we have a lot of the same thought process and mentality, and it really kind of resonated together, which was nice. So.
Yeah. And I love the story because like you started going to networking events, you started like really thinking about it. You started thinking outside the box, and like you're like, okay, where do these guys at, right?
Right. Where do I find more Pats? Like, where do I find the people that are going to get after it? Because I'm getting after it. I want to be surrounded by people that are getting after it. So like, where are they? Are they at these networking events? Is there a bar that they go to? Are there restaurants? Are there what's there? And I really started focusing in on that because I was 100% virtual, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's when we first started talking. I was 100% virtual just because of some health problems and COVID that was going on in my family.
Yeah.
So it just kind of took off from there because I ended up in the right place.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. I love the hustle and seeing that. And not to mention that is like, that's when you're seeing somebody, you see their success, and then you partner with a company like that. And like you said, we have a good relationship, and then we can talk freely. And it's like, okay, we got this going on. Or, you may go to a conference and you're like, hey, man, I heard about this, right? Like, I want to know what's going on ahead of things, right? And so when you have a financial advisor, I mean, for people that are listening, number one, networking. Like, that was your number one thing, was networking, get on Zoom, get in front of the people, right?
Yeah.
And then number two is like build the relationship that you can have a long lasting relationship. And because like we have a couple of principles, and we've even talked about in some of our calls, like never lie, right? Like if you lie to me, we're done, right?
We're done. We're out.
We're done. And so there's things that you set up and principles that you hold, and that works out really well.
Yeah. And those are things that I kind of hold dear. Like I go through that with all of my clients at the beginning. Like, this is what you can expect from me. What do you expect from me?
Yeah.
And here's what you need to expect. That I'm expecting of you. Yes. Right. And we set those boundaries. We kind of lay out, again, it's by design that we're doing that because I want to work with people that want to work with me. Yeah. I want to work with people that resonate with me. I want to work with those people that are getting out, grinding and hustling and building, because that's exactly what I'm doing. Right. So I'm going to lean pretty hard on the phrase, and you've heard me say it probably thousands of times. It's by design. It's not by default. Like
Yeah.
we're doing these things on purpose. And really, if you want the key to success for me, is that's what it's been. It's been doing things on purpose rather than just because they're there.
That's exactly. You got to have a plan. You got to execute the plan, right? Like exactly what you're saying is be, intentional and proactive, and don't be reactive. And so
Yeah.
instead of you being reactive to your finances, right? Because that's the way I was back, 10 years ago. And then I didn't have a plan. I was like, dude, we need a plan. And then that's how we started doing it, slowly but surely. And then you work your way up. So my question for you, David, is, somebody's watching this now, and I know, we had to go through a lot of red tape, right, to get you on here and all that stuff. I know
Yeah.
it's a drawn out process, but I'm so glad you're here. Super excited. But, when somebody's coming on here, let's talk about, when do they start? So they get their business up to, say, $200,000. They start making a little bit of money. They're profiting some money. What is, and obviously say what you can, but what does that look like for some of the viewers in here? Because we got companies that are doing 100,000, 200, 500,000, a million gross, even higher. So what does that look like for them?
So first things first, the group of business owners that are at like $2 million of revenue to about $10 million of revenue. Okay. That is the most underserved financial community in the country.
Yes.
Because they're just out there grinding and doing, right? So it's really important to pair up and do good, thoughtful planning, and not just. And when I'm talking about planning, I'm not just talking about like opening up a SEP IRA or an IRA or something like that. Really, like be able to break down a P&L. Really be able to know where your personal plan is going, because we need to separate the personal from the business.
Yeah.
And that's hugely important.
Ooh,
Now, when we're talking lower than that, let's talk startup, right?
okay.
Start on ground zero, right? Any financial advisor worth their grain of salt, okay, is going to sit down and be able to talk to a business owner about their P&L, help them try to grow their business, and then figure out a way to help them grow while they grow. Right?
Yeah.
So the first thing is when you're in business, you need to be able, and I was actually told this a little while ago, and it really resonated with me. You have to pick your financial stress point. It's either going to be stress and cash flow in the business, or it's going to be stress and cash flow at home. But you have to pick it. You have to do it by design. And a lot of times people pull those two things together. And so when you can pull those apart and really have a clear vision of like, this is my business money, this is what I have to bring home, like this is what I have to leverage to bring money home. We've talked about that a lot too.
Oh, yeah.
I have to leverage money so that cash flow keeps going.
Dude, I love leveraging. Yes, leveraging money and making the money work for you. Music to my ears.
Yeah, and so really having the business account set up, and I think we got a comment in here that goes along with this is they have a hard time separating their personal and business planning. The biggest reason is they start off on the wrong foot, and they end up funding their business with their personal accounts. Right? You remember that?
Oh yeah.
You remember that? And that's like that hurts, right? Like it hurts at home, it hurts at business. You can't really separate the two. So you really have to have a game plan of, okay, this is my business account. I'm going to start it off with X number of dollars because that's going to cover me for 3 months. That includes my salary. I'm going to take my own salary off of it. And you may end up being in the red for a little bit while you're working on a big deal, whatever it may be. Right. But setting those things up are really important.
So I'll drop a note in here too. Profit first.
Yeah.
So we use profit first, and that was a huge game changer for us when we set up the 5 bank accounts. And we took the profit right off the top. So every week we would take that, whatever it was. I think we were doing 7% in the very beginning, then it was 10%, then it was more, right? But you got to start somewhere and start doing it. And it might be scary in the beginning. Take a smaller percentage and then put it in that owner's draw account.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the big things that I believe in, and you and I have talked about this, is also like giving back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my wife and I, we give back somewhere around the 2% of gross income, gross everything, back to the community in one way or another. And it really just helps. It not only helps in the network, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're doing good things. So make sure that you're also giving back a little bit, because it's a real morale booster, and it makes the business feel good as well.
Dude, like when we first were like, it was hard, right? It was rice and beans in the winter. I mean, I remember the struggle in the winter. And so what we did was to give back was free house washing, right? Like if it was the north facing side, whatever it can be, something for the community, whatever you can do, right? It doesn't have to be huge in the beginning and then slowly work your way up, but give something, get that muscle memory going, because it's hard. You're like, well, I'll give when we make money. I'll give, you know what I mean? And then you never do it. Start off with something.
Yeah. And it builds momentum. It just builds, for any entrepreneur, it just builds momentum.
Yeah. And it always comes back. You put it into the universe, man, and it comes back to you. It's amazing how the things behind the scenes work out.
Yeah. And you have no idea what's coming around that next corner. I have no idea if the next person that walks into my building is like in debt and needing help, or if they got $1 million sitting in a bank account that they've never told anybody about before.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
And you can't judge a book by its cover.
You have no idea.
Yep. No, it's pretty incredible, the stories and like how it comes back. You know what I mean? It's just it blows my mind for sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I think
and
entrepreneurs too, David, you probably attest to this. It's like, man, God shows up. Like you can see him working all over the place, and it's just incredible to watch. Other business owners, whatever it may be. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. He does, and it shows up. Like I can't. Yep. Absolutely. Right. Like that's just a daily thing that I see over and over and over again. So wholeheartedly agree.
Love it, man. All right. So we got about 5 minutes left. So we keep this short, sweet, to the point. So I want to drop 5 minutes. Let's drop some nuggets for these folks. Right. So I obviously can't give specifics, but for somebody that's interested, what can they do? What are like some first steps, I guess they'd say, with your company, to kind of reach out, get some info, right? They don't have to know, don't hold them to the fire for it, but what can they do? Jump on a call, get some, knowledge. What does that look like?
Yeah. So my partners and I agree that preliminary conversations are information gathering. We check and we make sure, number one, we can coexist. There's like a good connection. Number two, you get to determine whether we're competent for you. Number three, are we trustworthy? And then number four comes in cost, right? What's the cost of doing all of it? So the first conversations are really just reaching out, either us reaching out to clients or clients reaching out to us, and just having a good conversation. We're always open for new conversations, regardless of where you are. Now, the different levels of business get different tiers of access of stuff. Just like you're not going to send how many ever trucks to do a church compared to going and doing the convention center, right? Like there's some give and take there. I don't know if that analogy resonated at all, but really, like you just get, the first conversation is just so critical, which is why we just treat it with respect. We have no idea what you're bringing to the table. You have no idea what we're bringing to the table. There's no shame involved to it at all. You could be a hot mess, right?
Yep.
And walk right into my door with a smile on your face and come and get some information,
Yes.
right?
Dude, that's the scariest part is like, dude, my finances are a mess, right? Like, and you might think that, but in reality, you're like, wait, you just got to do this, this, and this, and then you're set, right? Like,
right.
You probably had that.
Yeah, it's oftentimes where people have a lot of good stuff. It's just stuck in a closet. Like the first conversation is just cleaning the closet, man. It's just open the door, let us take a look, and let's dig in.
Yes.
And it can get messy.
Yeah.
Right?
It can.
So couple nuggets. Always make decisions in finance with the long game in mind. Yeah. You can go and hunt for home runs, right? Big opportunities with your business. You can go find those opportunities. Those are going to make you more money than any financial advisor is going to make you anyway, right? But always approach the finances with the long term in mind. So that's number one. Number two is pick vehicles by design based on how you're going to receive the money back rather than it's pure ROI. Right? That's a big deal. And then number two, we're going to go back to design. Or number three, we're going back to designing. Design your community, right? You and I have talked about this. Have somebody outside of your business and outside of your home that you can call on a regular basis for an SOS, right? Like, and just pick up the phone and be like, hey, I need to vent, right? Like, hey, I need to get this out because it would eat you alive. This being an entrepreneur, starting things on your own, like, dude, it can get lonely, right? So having somebody that understands that they're that for you, number one, they're going to be honored to be that person.
Okay.
And number two, they know why you're calling.
Love that. That's huge, man. That's huge. And, you know, for guys too, like we talked about this too, is like we had multiple businesses. And so like when it gets messy, we're like, okay, what do we do? I mean, I don't even remember how many businesses I had. I sold a couple of them now, but then,
I remember.
Yeah, no, you do.
Yeah. So when you have multiple things going on, it's all about just doing it by design, keeping it in order. The more organized you can do it, the better. Y'all were pretty organized, whether or not you believe you were or not.
Yeah, I don't think we're organized. Yeah.
But we were able to, say, hey, this is what this is for, this is what this is for, and this is what this is for. And when we really separated out, you had a lot more built than you thought you did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. At the end, I was like, oh, shoot. Okay. So it made me feel a lot better, right?
Yeah. So we just had to put it in the right place. We just have things doing the wrong jobs.
Yeah.
Right? Just the wrong jobs.
Yep. And it was cool to see how you guys put them in the right way, and then we can see the direct results from that. That was really neat, I think, to see. And then seeing the whole funnel was, it was just easy. Broke it down for me.
Yeah. And then take it step by step.
Yeah.
Right? The best time to plan is yesterday, but let's just take it piece by piece, build it in the right way, and make sure each piece is right along the way. And then you end up making headway real quick.
Yep. All right. That's amazing, David. All right. So what I ask every guest at the end is what's one thing that they can do, from this call, from one of these takeaways, what's one thing that they can do tomorrow that's going to increase their longevity of their money? I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah. I'm gonna it's gonna go back to what we've been talking about from the beginning, is like make sure the money has the job. Doing that by design is just going to increase the efficiency of the dollars that you're putting into things. Because then if you're trying to save it, right? It's designed to be safe. You know, you're not chasing ROI, but it's there for a reason. If you're trying to invest it, it's there for a reason. You can go after it. It's just picking what you want and then getting the supporting cast of the different accounts, the different whatever they may be, right? In line to do the job they're supposed to do. And then let them do it. Like, don't fight it. Then let them do it.
That's right. Trust the process.
That's right. That's right.
Love it. Well, there you have it, guys. You heard it first right here. Community with Closers with my man, David McArthur. So, David, where can they reach out and get you? What's your social, wherever they can reach you at?
Yeah. So, easiest way is right off of LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. It's just always up. It's the easiest for me. It's David McArthur, Northwestern Mutual. I do have a website. It's david.macarthur.nm.com, I think. And then also feel free to like shoot a message on Facebook saying, "Hey, I heard you on the podcast and I want to talk." We'll set up a time and just sit down and have a good one. We can do it virtually. We can do it in person if you're here in the upstate. Either way, it's great.
Love it, man. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Community with Closers. Have an amazing 4th of July. We're going to get back on the lake, and we will see you guys next week, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Have an amazing night. Later, David.
Have a good one.